J.R.R. Tolkien, George Martin, J.K. Rowling, they've all given us amazing fantasy worlds that you can just get lost into them and feel the aura of the world. Whether that is through a book, a film, or a game. But which one is the best of all? Welcome back to another video, fellas, and today I will give you a list with the top fantasy worlds ever created in my opinion. So are you ready? Let's go! Number 13. Azeroth, World of Warcraft. The world of Azeroth might seem a little bit generic compared to some of the entries in this list, but the world has just enough unique flavor to make it stand out from the countless other worlds in the fantasy genre. Number 12. The Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. The fantastical setting for Lewis Carroll's Victorian fantasy novel, Alice in Wonderland. Wonderland is inhabited by all kind of memorable yet surrealistic characters, from the Mad Hatter to the ever-grinding Cheshire Cat and the hookah-smoking caterpillar. The world of Wonderland itself serves as a critique of Victorian ideals, especially towards the plight of children in Victorian society. Nonetheless, Wonderland lives up to its name through its diverse landscape, which includes oceans, forests, and various gardens. Number 11. The First Millennium by Brian Ansell, Richard Halliwell, and Rick Priestley. I could have gone with either of the two main Warhammer settings, but I felt that the universe of 40k was a bit more unique, simply due to the mashup of fantasy and science fiction. There are no shortage of works that mix the genres of fantasy and science fiction, but few take it to the extreme that 40k does. This is a universe where space marines battle orcs and elves while fending off an attack from sorcerers trying to summon demons from the realm of chaos. Between the genre mashup and the ultra-dark themes, the whole setting is more than a bit of absurd, but sure enough, it's a wonderful kind of absurdity. Number 10. Land of Oz by Lyman Frank Baum. Fairy tales are a rare breed today, mostly confined to Disney movies or children's storybooks. And that's what makes reading the Frank Baum's Oz stories so refreshing. Baum's World of Oz is best known as the setting for the 1939 classic The Wizard of Oz, but Baum actually wrote more than a dozen books set in this magical kingdom. Everything has surreal magical quality to it that is a bit old-fashioned but incredibly charming nonetheless. Number 9. The Worlds of Dungeons & Dragons by Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson. Since creating the tabletop RPG game, Dungeons & Dragons has been host to countless adventures and stories, from player-made campaigns to official source books and novels, and even a film adaptation that will come out in theaters in 2023. The various worlds of the D&D multiverse are many, and picking out a single setting as the best D&D experience would be a disservice to the game's passionate fanbase. Dungeons & Dragons and RPGs in general have always had a strong narrative component, and each of D&D's settings were designed to help bring out a particular style of storytelling. If variety is a spice of life, then Dungeons & Dragons is certainly a savory dish. Number 8. Atlantis. One of the oldest fantasy worlds ever created, Atlantis has held a special place in popular culture for thousands of years. While there is still much debate about the real-life inspiration of Atlantis, or even if Atlantis ever existed, many historians have identified the Minoan civilization of the island of Thera in Greece and its subsequent destruction by a huge volcano as the probable source of the idea of Atlantis. The mythological version of Atlantis, however, has since been adapted several times into popular culture, from movies to comic books to everything in between. Even J.R.R. Tolkien himself was said to be inspired by the lost world of Atlantis for the creation of the island of Numenor, which was also a utopian land that eventually got swallowed by the sea. Number 7. The World of Pandora by James Cameron. The planet of Pandora is depicted as being located in the Alpha Centauri A system, about 4.3 light years away from Earth. It's one of the many natural satellites orbiting the gas giant Polyphemus. The inhabitants of this world are the Na'vi. The Na'vi have special organs called Wicho that take advantage of Pandora's atmosphere to extract greater amounts of oxygen for the bloodstream. Thankfully, the Avatar sequel, The Way of Water, shattered the box office, holding up to the legacy of the first movie, and so James Cameron will give us more of the world of Pandora with the upcoming sequels. Number 6. Westeros and Essos by George R. R. Martin. The world of George R. R. Martin, A Song in Ice and Fire, needs little in the way of introduction thanks to its popular HBO adaptation. In fact, the world of A Song of Ice and Fire, of which Westeros is merely one part, is probably one of the most well-known entries on this list. So what makes this world so compelling for fans of fantasy and non-fantasy alike? One of the big things is how grounded the world feels. Martin based the struggle for the Iron Throne off the War of the Roses, and had at one point considered writing a piece of historical fiction as opposed to fantasy. In the end, Martin felt that historical fiction was too limiting for what he wanted to do, so he set the story in his own world, but kept the magic and other fantasy tropes fairly low-key. And this worked to the benefit of the series, as it is able to appeal to both fantasy fan and non-fans alike, widening its appeal and helping it become one of the most successful series in history. Number 5. The Wizarding World by J.K. Rowling. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry is set in a secret parallel world of wizards, magic and mythological animals known as the Wizarding World. Hogwarts serves as the premier boarding school for magic users who are divided into 4 schoolhouses. Every 90s kid dreamed of receiving a letter to attend Hogwarts. The school itself is a large medieval castle set on top of a cliff overlooking a lake and surrounded by an enchanted forest deep in the Scottish Highlands. Definitely one of the most known fictional worlds around the globe. Number 4. Narnia by Clive Staples Lewis. From the creative genius of English author Clive Staples Lewis and a close friend of J.R.R. Tolkien comes the mythical world of the Chronicles of Narnia, a land of talking animals, mythological creatures, and widespread magic where only a select few humans, usually children, are permitted to visit through a magical wardrobe. Narnia is a world arguably as detailed and rich as Tolkien's Middle-earth, with a number of different countries, people, diverse landscapes, and even cosmology. Number 3. A Galaxy Far, Far Away by George Lucas.
Hello there.
This one might seem like cheating, since, on the surface, Star Wars appears to be a work of science fiction. But, thanks to the Force, Star Wars has always been closer to space fantasy than something based in real science, such as Star Trek. Things such as spaceships, blasters, and droids, alongside the magic of the Force, make Star Wars one of the most versatile stories on this list. Simply, Star Wars is a dystopia that Star Trek is not, by comparison. However, there remains pockets of some of science fiction's most creative landscapes between all of Star Wars mediums. Coruscant, Naboo, and the hundreds of planets explored in the Clone Wars cartoon and video games are each iconic in their own ways. One can imagine themselves Jedi in the height of the Old Republic, or the Twilight Hours on the Clone Wars, a Rebel X-Wing pilot, or a Sith apprentice. This world that George Lucas created is simply unique, and spans over half a century since its creation, and of course, new elements, details, and new lore are updated to this day.
No, I am your father.
Number 2. The Continent, or The World of the Witcher by Andrzej Sapkowski. In recent years, the Witcher franchise by Polish author Andrzej Sapkowski has steadily become a global phenomenon. The unique and varied surroundings of its medieval fantasy realm known as the Continent have contributed much to the franchise's success. Many of the various locations, characters, and monsters of Sapkowski's fictional world are based in part on Eastern European history and Slavic folklore and tales. For example, the historic capital of Silesia in southern Poland serves as a major inspiration for the Redanian city of Oxenford in the Witcher universe. From the Nordic-inspired Skellige Islands to the bucolic countryside of Toussaint and the port city of Novigrad, the world of The Witcher covers a wide swath of territory, providing plenty of material for readers, players, and viewers to explore. The Witcher world prides to be very unique and a one-of-a-kind in its own way.
Want to hear a limerick?
Sure.
Lambert, what a prick.
Number 1. Middle-earth by J.R.R. Tolkien. I mean, did you ever doubt? Let's start by saying that Tolkien invented his own languages, and so created this massive world of Middle-earth to give his languages a place to belong. Think about it. A fantasy world so incredibly detailed that its creator constructed 10 full native languages, each with unique grammar and alphabets. This is mind-blowing. Middle-earth is the prime example of a fantasy world that all others look up to. From its diverse folklore to its epic landscapes and thousands of years of history, Tolkien's Middle-earth is most notably featured in his novels The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, as well as later published books, and of course, the masterpiece trilogy by Peter Jackson. To put it simply, when you think about fantasy, 9 out of 10 times you think of Tolkien and Middle-earth. You can't write a list about fantasy worlds and not include Middle-earth. It may not have been the first fantasy world ever, but it's without a doubt the most famous, and it's responsible for what many readers have come to expect from the fantasy genre in general. It has elves, being an immortal wise race, orcs being barbaric savages, and a Dark Lord seeking to conquer the world. I mean, everything can be found in Middle-earth. And even if Middle-earth weren't the father of fantasy worlds, it would still be number one on this list, simply because of the sheer amount of depth Tolkien injected into his vision. His goal was to create a mythology that would be distinctly British but separated from Arthurian lore. To that end, Tolkien created an entire history for Middle-earth. And what you see in The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings is only a tiny speck of it. From the story of Middle-earth's creation to the forging of the Silmarils and so much more, Middle-earth is arguably the most well-detailed and fleshed-out fantasy world ever conceived. Possibly a fantasy world that its creation will forever be unmatched. And that's all, everyone. Thank you for watching. Do you agree with this list? What is your favorite fantasy world? Let me know in the comments below. Before you go, make sure to smash like and subscribe. Until the next one, have an amazing time and I'll see you all later.
You're still here. It's over. Go home.